evening from Wales, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are watching Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast on a day where WWE have announced the signing of Penta, formerly known as Penta L0, Pentagon Jr., Pentagon Dark. He's gone by a lot of names, but in WWE, he will go by Penta. We're going to be talking about that as well as answering some of your questions for Mailbag Monday. Undoubtedly, it's going to be a great show, and for a great show, I must have a great panel, and boy, oh boy, do I have one today. Firstly, we have Clark Taylor, and Clark, my question for you today was, if you were a wrestler, would you rather wear Sting's face paint for every match, or for every match, wear Beast Mortos' mask?
Wow, that is really tough, but I will say this. I donned the Sting face paint once, and getting it off was such a hassle. I'm going to go with the mask because at least you can just leave after you take the mask off. It is not really possible with the face paint. That is a process, not only before the match, but after the match. Yeah, I'm going to go with the mask on that one, but that is a difficult question, to say the least.
It absolutely is, because I remember at the time, for days afterwards, you looked like you had black eyes from it. It is not easy to get it off at all. But we got numero one Superfly in the chat. Shout out to you, numero one. We have I Make Beat saying hello from the French coast. Shout out to you. And we got Josh Markowitz live from Syracuse today. What is up to you, Josh? As well, I hope you're having a fantastic Monday. Also joining us today, we have the head of reviews here at Wrestling Republic. And my question for you today, Coby, is would you rather review every episode of 2001 WCW or WWE's version of ECW for a year?
I think there's more value in potentially reviewing all of WCW. Or not all of WCW, but 2001 WCW. I mean, I could really explore, some of the poor booking decisions that did happen in that kind of final year. And I think there'd be more value doing those instead of the ECW ones.
I would pay out of pocket to see Coby's reviews. We would expose the bottom half of the review system in a way that it's never been used.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Honest to goodness, I think if you went through all of 01, Coby, if you could find 2 matches over 3.25 stars, I'd be stunned. Absolutely blown away. And I'm talking for the entire year. No, all right, Coby. 2 matches. You could find more than 2.
He'll overrate them.
There's no way.
Links to WWE, Clark.
There's no way.
Hey, don't put that out in the universe. They already accused me of that.
Oh, I'm just playing into it. But we got I Make Beat saying WCW for sure. And he's also saying what is better to review would be 2000 WCW, as it's so bad and cringe, it's actually B-movie entertainment. A lot of people are going back and rewatching now.
Both are close.
The only people that can rewatch are in the States because of a peak.
That's true. We can't watch it anymore, Coby.
It's
Netflix
remarkable,
it from us.
though, how much better like the late 90s were compared. You had this, like, they can't keep it going this bad. And, like, it. Even I watched it at such a young age, recognized like, no, but next week it's going to be back to normal, right? Like, is all you could think. You're like, there's no way they can possibly top how bad it is. And then they just kept doing it over and over and over
again. Another one.
We got a lovely comment here from I Make Beats as well, saying WR bringing the world together. Shout out to you. And we got Jesse Hyde in the comments saying Penta may go full on Lucha Underground style on Chad Gable. I mean, that would I'd love to see it. I'd absolutely love to see Pentagon Jr. Lucha Underground style. But that brings us straight into our opening topic for today, because the big news is that ahead of tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw, WWE have officially announced that Penta has signed with them. they have released merchandise for him already. I mean, I don't know why they didn't just wait until after Raw. Yes, we all knew it was Penta. The teasers were just so obvious. But still, people are saying, it's not really a spoiler because we knew. But this is maybe just me being my graphic designer self. What really bugged me was I didn't know what type of mask he was going to wear in WWE. Obviously, I know the style, but I didn't know the color. Was he going to go Pentagon Dark, or was he going to go back to his traditional mask? Well, they spoiled it. We know he's going back to his traditional one, but I cannot wait to see him tonight. And our first question today for Mailbag Monday is by It's Joe Kalassi, who is asking, do you think Penta will be used better in WWE? Well, I'm going to let Clark and Coby touch on this, but specifically what I'm going to talk about is earning money off somebody with a great look such as Penta. WWE took minus 10 hours to start selling his masks. AEW had him for 5 years and didn't do it once. I mean, those things are going to print money. He is so marketable, and it's just one of the many things marketing-wise which AEW did miss out on their early years. They're getting better at it now. They're releasing hologram masks and all of that. But regardless, the fact they didn't release these Pentagon masks when they're already flying off the shelf with WWE, it was wild to me. But I'm very, very excited for tonight. Clark, I'm passing this one to you first. Do you think he's going to be used better in WWE?
I love Penta. He's one of my favorite performers. And Ray Phoenix, I think, I say it all the time. I still, to this day, believe that Ray Phoenix is currently the best luchador in the world when it comes to that style. Penta is right up there as well, easily. I'm really excited about the debut. It does feel a little bit spoiled. We kind of knew it was coming. It would have been cool if it didn't get allegedly cut, or if it had happened on Raw and NXT because of the fact that the shop gear hadn't been released yet. Now we just know, and the mysterious aspect of Penta's character is kind of overlooked here because we know he's coming. I'm still really stoked to see him. Will he be booked better in WWE? I don't know about that. Will they probably sell the merch better? Yeah. At least right now, for sure. But long term, I don't know that he's in a better spot than he was before to ascend to the top of the card. I don't see him in the World Championship picture anytime soon on either brand in WWE. Maybe NXT, but that seems unfair to a talent as good as Penta right this second. And in AEW, that always did actually feel like a possibility. We saw him very often around the top of the card and competitive against the top single stars, whether it's in tag action or in singles matches on Dynamite. So it's a tough one for me. I mean, he made a good decision, I would say, in my eyes, because you got to strike while the iron's hot, and it wasn't getting much hotter at the end of his AEW run, but we will see if he does cap, or if WWE wants to really, strap the rocket to him or not. And I don't think that's the case.
You can't seriously tell me that you ever thought he could win the world title in AEW.
I did.
He was never near that title picture.
I mean, he had matches against world champions, singles matches against
so did
really big time stars and good ones, and picked up victories at times. And not only that, in tag action with his brother.
Yeah, in tag action, he was hugely successful.
Hugely successful. I would say the idea of him ascending beyond that without the tag stuff in WWE seems like a tall ask. I mean, we've seen Andrade, we've seen guys like that, and the move, and I just the idea of him getting stuck is a little scary to me because I'm such a big fan, honestly. I mean that from a positive standpoint. I'm not trying to do this like he was better off in AEW than WWE. No. That's not what I'm saying. I want Penta to really actually do well.
Yeah,
I just think,
there's a great comment here from Shots Below the Belt saying, if Penta joins the LWO, I'm going to lose my stuff. I agree. I mean, that would just infuriate me. But they're going to blame your sweater, Clark. But it is a great sweater. No doubt about it.
I appreciate it. That's
But
hilarious.
Pierce is saying the international title is the closest he ever would have got singles wise in AEW. Yeah, I mean TNT International I could see,
I think
never world
TNT was
title.
possible. I mean, in the picture. I mean, do you see him getting a WWE title?
I think
By
he'll be as
comparison?
close as he would be to an AEW title. He's not
Really?
near either. He's miles from both. But I do agree with you, though, Clark. I think he's only got upper mid card potential until Phoenix comes in, if he comes in. And then when we get the Lucha Bros, they're going to be a big deal in WWE, just like they were in AEW, right? It wasn't all bad for them, but I do think the worst thing AEW did with them was not make enough money off them, right? And that's obviously more for, for AEW rather than for the Lucha Bros, but they should have earned so much more money. They are so marketable, especially Penta. Rosario's asking heel or face at the start. No doubt
I
he's
think
going to be a face going against Gable tonight. But we've also got Bobby Batista in the comments. Shout out to you and shout out to Rosario as well. But Coby, what about you? Do you think he's going to be used better in WWE?
I mean, once again, like it is a tough thing to quantify, and I mean, being used better, it's tough because we sat here and we looked at AEW. They brought them in red hot. The first few shows had the Lucha Brothers feuding with the Bucks before Dynamite even started, and then they eventually had their crowning moment in that steel cage match, which is something to say. They were on top of the world. They've had several figures that looked great, were sold great. I think it was Penta that had the headdress on the figure, but overall, like it's tough to sit here and go, "Oh yeah, Penta could have achieved more." This is the interesting part. Is now we have a lot of time. We have time for Pentagon Jr. to be in a company without his brother, and that may be what 10 months, if that, give or take. And we're in a weird scenario where until Phoenix gets there, that's when the Lucha Brothers are going to be put together. But if Pentagon Jr. is being a solo act for a while, it's going to be tough. Could I see Pentagon being someone who feuds with Gunther? Yeah, I could. If they are going to do a Mexican PLE, yeah, you're gonna put Pentagon in a prominent role there. Pentagon versus Braun Breaker. That gets me excited.
Yes,
If you
please.
ask me, like I think Pentagon Jr. has the ability to get over. He has the chance. He has the charisma. I think he is more versatile than Ray Phoenix because he can work more styles. Ray's way more athletically gifted, but we've seen Penta do I don't want to say death matches, but we've seen him do more extreme matches. We've seen him work more technical, and like we've seen a lot different style of matches. So he could definitely work differently with Braun Breaker, with Chad Gable. If you put him in the ring with Rey Mysterio, you're going to get more of that style. I think he has the potential to get over, to be more versatile in the ring, and overall just get. I think he can get over. I don't know if he'll win a title before Ray Phoenix gets there, but I do think he can contend. And ultimately, does he get used better? It's just a tough thing to say. It's a tough thing to quantify because he had crowning moments. He had classic matches in AEW that it's almost a different boat because WWE's okay. Well, we're going to talk about storytelling. We're going to talk about merch selling there's so many other things to quantify that it is a tough question to answer.
It absolutely is. I do agree with you. It's great question submitted, but it is one which is impossible to answer this early.
It's such a multi-layered conversation. Well, like you said, you were going to pass it to us, but you were going to talk specifically about how AEW didn't release masks. It's like, okay, well, that's one part here. I could talk about the difference of Pentagon Jr. being in a company by himself. I can talk about what happened.
Things.
Like there's so many things.
There's a lot of variables.
So many pathways that we can talk about that it like you said, it's a great question, but it's a question it's a question that's hard to answer.
And another variable is this. Pierce is saying, of course, he'll be very watered down in WWE because he won't be able to do the pile drivers. He won't be able to do the death matches, which he has been known for.
Here's what I'm worried about. I know moveset's a bugaboo these days. Sorry, Punk. But
can't say that word. Oh, Mark.
My bad. I said it. But moveset wise, let's think about Penta, right? Package pile driver, Kevin Owens. Sling Blade, Finn Balor, and Seth Rollins.
He could do the Sling Blade. Yeah, he could use that. That'll be fun.
Probably.
That'll be fun.
He'll keep the Sling Blade.
And then when do we have him and Gunther chop each other? Are we gonna do
we
that?
can do that. Yes, please. Give me that in a slice of seconds.
That's my last thing, though. I'm like, I said moveset, so I wanted to make up. That was kind of a makeup. I mean.
Yeah.
J Money 17 over on Instagram says that he could win the United States Championship. I could see that. Polo says
he'd have to go to SmackDown.
I'm still but is the brand split even real now? Polo _RRY24 says I'm still hurt. I didn't get to see him on Monday. That was one of the main reasons I went. I was frustrated as well. They advertised him. It's whatever, right? Well, they advertised the mystery was going to debut that week. And they did. They knew what they were doing too, by the way. Some people are saying just because they showed the Raw Netflix logo doesn't mean he was going to debut in the premiere. That is just nonsense to me. They knew what they were doing. I don't want to hear any of that. But Pierce saying no multiple Canadian destroyers. Yeah. I may beat saying they need to protect Penta regardless of casual fans and their awareness of him. He's got a great look though too, so he'll get over instantly. Bobby says Intercontinental Championship. That could be a good shout.
Would dig that. I would love that.
I would as well. The heel Mark says, I'm just waiting for Lucha Bros versus Motor City Machine Guns. That match in WWE, I mean, I think we've seen it elsewhere before, but in WWE, that would be absolutely wild, no doubt about it. Dragon Lee too. Yes, please. Yes, please. But
I mean, the other one is to talk about your point about them doing the Netflix logo. They did it with Joe Hendry saying any place, anytime, and then showed the Netflix logo on Raw logo. And it was like, well, what is Joe Hendry going to appear? No, he didn't. He did.
It was different, though. It was different. They were doing the promos for weeks and weeks. And then the last one, the Netflix logo came out on it. They knew what they were doing, right? They hinted heavily he was going to be on that debut. He was not there. And I think if he showed up on that episode, if they managed to find the time on that episode to have him debut, I think there would have been a lot less criticisms because one, even if it was a very short match, you could have had a fifth match or whatever. But even still, I think that would have just been another surprise, or not necessarily a surprise, but it's another thing to talk about that would shut up fans a little bit. Because, of course, a lot of people weren't happy. A lot of hardcore fans, I should say, weren't happy. But now let's move on to the next question, because the next question is submitted by @Shatnam Bajora over on Instagram, who is asking, Survivor Series should have a SmackDown versus Raw theme. If you can't fit War Games with it, then don't. I mean, this is an interesting one, and Clark, I want to get your thoughts on it.
So Shatnam is a really good friend of the show, and I had to really think about this one because I'm pretty torn on it. Here's the thing. When it comes to Survivor Series, if you think about the brand split and the brand supremacy booking aspect, for lack of a better way to put it constipates the booking headed into your late November pay-per-view in the last few years, your last PLE of the year. And I don't know if that's worth it. Because now you got to do all kinds of weird cross-brand stuff to get people excited about the SmackDown versus Raw things. And you basically put everything you've developed on their own brands on the back burner for months. At least with War Games, you get advancement towards Mania season, towards Rumble season. That's what we've seen the last few years. It's not perfect. It hasn't been perfect every time. And I don't think it was ever perfect when it was SmackDown versus Raw, when it was brand split stuff. But I think War Games is the answer. It would be cool if you did maybe one brand supremacy match, whether it be the Intercontinental, maybe now that you have men's and women's Intercontinental titles, you have both of those defended against wrestlers from the other roster, or same with the US title, something like that, maybe. But I don't like the idea of going back to 5-on-5 because I just think it constipates the storytelling for that month. And it's a key month. It seems far away from WrestleMania, but it's really only 6-7 months. It's not that far away. And you can start to lay the groundwork for the Rumble and for Mania. And the year is built around Mania. That's the Super Bowl of professional wrestling in my eyes. And so I think the move to War Games is a calculated one. I think that's the reason that they've done it, is to avoid the idea of a month-long put all the stories on the back burner just for the brand split stories.
I think you make a fantastic point there, Clark. I really do. I mean, personally, I'm a bit divided on this because I do, as a fan, much prefer War Games, right? But at the same time, some of the brand versus brand stuff was fun. And also at the same time, I think both, if you do them for years, years and years and years, will get a little bit repetitive, will get a little bit boring. So what I would actually personally do is have every year alternate. 1 year, do what Bobby Petito says here, a 5v5v5 between Raw, SmackDown, and NXT to showcase some of the NXT roster as well.
Wild.
And then the next year, do a War Games, which is storyline related, right? I don't want to mix the two for sure. I don't want to see a brand supremacy War Games match. That has no interest to me because it needs to be, War Games is for a feud, which is a blood feud. But I'd maybe alternate it every other year, or yeah, I'd alternate it every other year, I think. Yeah, that's probably what I'd go for.
It's a difficult one because I do hear where he's coming from on, there's been some really fun 5-on-5s, but there's something that's not as special about the brand split as it was before. And
they need to fix that too.
Like brand pride was a thing when it really mattered in a lot of these Survivor Series matches that were about brand supremacy, right? Like the SmackDown 6 era, right?
Yeah.
It was a big deal. It felt like the brands were competitive against each other. They sort of feel like parallels now. They don't feel as much as before, like the brands are actually trying to challenge each other, because it's a lot of the same, staff and people production wise on both sides, right? It used to be actually fully divided, and there was something to that, right? Like Paul Heyman was trying to beat Raw, right?
No,
like Eric Bischoff was trying to beat Stephanie McMahon, and that's kind of gone away, and that's why I think War Games is the better option Survivor Series weekend.
I do agree with numero one Superfly, who's saying, in 2021 there was no reward for it because Adam Pearce was choosing both. That was ridiculous. I completely agree with you there. That was silly. I Make Beat says brand split isn't important in WWE. Everyone goes wherever. I do think that's a little bit of an issue as well. J Money 17 says the War Games PLE is much better. So the general feeling is War Games is the answer to this question. It does seem like, but sometimes War Games can get a bit repetitive to me, but something which never gets repetitive to me is Demand Progress Plus. If you guys unsubscribe to Demand Progress Plus, you absolutely should be, and you can use code WatchProgress1 to get 50% off your first month on Demand Progress Plus, the home of Progress Wrestling, Defy Wrestling, and more. Honestly, I can't say enough good things about it. You can watch all the historic Progress shows on there. There's so much good wrestling. It is legitimately my favorite pro wrestling streaming service. So easy to use as well. But talking about my favorite things, one of my other favorite things is the app Itsy. Now, if you guys don't know who Itsy is, it's somebody who we've recently partnered with. And basically, we can do live streams on their app where you guys can come and you can join us and you can join the call too. If you want, you can just stay in the chat and send some, normal comments. But if you want to come on screen, talk to us with your camera on or off, you can do that. You can argue with Clark about his takes on Cody. You can tell me why what I've said on Allison Analysis is completely wrong. You can come and you can give your thoughts. You can download the free app. It's called It, so you can see the logo there. It's on the App Store. It's on the Google Play Store. And head to the upcoming stream section to see when we do our streams. We will have an update on when we will do our next one in the very, very near future. Now, let's move on, and let's move on to rank some Bullet Club leaders. This question comes up from @just.apart over on Instagram. Shout out to you who's asking us to rank the Bullet Club leaders. A great question. There's been quite a few of them. Coby, what is your ranking for this one?
I will say, allegedly, Rosario is just apart.
Why, I do know that. I do know that.
I know.
So it is tough, and figuring out the 7 names that I am going to rank is fun, and I'm kind of going to blow through the first few quick. Starting at 7, Carl Anderson. He was never officially the leader. He is considered one because he was one of the founding members with Prince Devitt, but he was always kind of like that. He was always kind of that assistant. He had Finn Balor, and then Finn Balor left and AJ came in. Or not Finn Balor, he was Prince Devitt at the time. And then, so he was never officially the head honcho or the guy running the ship in that sense. So I do think I have to put Carl at 7. Right now, the other one, and this might get a little controversial, 6. 6 is Prince Devitt. He's the founding leader. He's kind of what we call since the beginning. He's what's created this faction, this mega group. But the majority of the other stars went on to win heavyweight gold or bigger championships. Finn Balor didn't. Prince Devitt was never on top of the company. And I think that's what I sit here and go, well, if I'm ranking these people, I don't necessarily want to go in that direction. Number 5, I got Evil. I think this is the lowest I can go with Evil. He joined the Bullet Club and took over, going after double champion Tetsuya Naito. He ended up holding them for I think a month or 2, but then he went on and started to make his subgroup called the House of Torture. That's another conversation for another day about what House of Torture does in the ring. And I mean, the thing is he gives the people someone to hate, and I'll give them that, especially with the difference of kind of presentation and how wrestling is viewed in Japan. It's a different boat altogether. I do have Evil at 5. Number 4, I have Jay White. And Jay White was the leader for a solid amount of time, but it was in a downswing because we had a lot of importance with a different leader, and then it was always going to be hard with people, very influential members, leaving the group and being able to continue the momentum. So Jay White at 4. Now the final 3. I have David Finlay at 3, and I think, especially the BC War Dogs, the Bullet Club War Dogs, he's really established and has been able to take it up a notch. I think a lot of people enjoy what the War Dogs are doing. Drill Maloney and Clark Connors were really good as a tag team. Alex Coughlin and Gabe Kidd were great together for the time they were a team. Obviously, Coughlin had to retire, but it's good to see that Gabe Kidd is doing well. He's on the rise as well, and I think there's going to be a lot of conflict between Gabe Kidd and David Finlay if I'm speculating, but David Finlay's done a lot of repairing of our perception surrounding the Bullet Club, and I think that's why he's number 3. Number 2 is AJ Styles. AJ Styles, of course, held the world title. He feuded with Shinsuke Nakamura at the time, and he was kind of the first, I don't want to say the first, because it's all been Gaijin leaders other than Evil, but he was the one that, had the history. He spent over 10 years in TNA before, and then went for what a lot of people say was a generational Japan run for the talent. A lot of people loved AJ Styles. And I think ultimately what set us up for the best chapter of Bullet Club was when Kenny Omega took over. Kenny Omega, of course, not led the Bullet Club, but not led. He did lead the Bullet Club, but the Young Bucks was also as influential for the Bullet Club as Kenny Omega, and I think they did that as a group. Kenny Omega is what is one of the major things that made New Japan kind of pop off. New Japan got a lot more international love and a lot more international attention because of what Kenny Omega was doing in the company. And I think that's kind of what stemmed what I'm valuing that a lot in this sense. Kenny Omega led the group, ultimately did give the reins to Jay White when Jay White took over. But it's an undoubtable chapter with him and Omega having their matches. He held the world title going to Wrestle Kingdom main event with Tanahashi. And we look back upon that as, I don't want to say the peak of New Japan interest, but he did a lot of stuff, especially feuding with Chris Jericho. In Chris Jericho's essentially first ever non-WWE rivalry. And then ended up leaving and going to AEW. But there's a lot of stuff to praise surrounding Kenny Omega, so I do have Kenny at 1.
Kenny made the show.
I do agree with your list, Coby. I do have Kenny Omega. So I don't agree with your list, but I do agree with Kenny Omega at number 1. Pierce has quite a different list with Prince Devitt at number 1, but Soul does agree with your list as well. For me personally, I cannot see how there is a universe in which Evil isn't last place. He is number 6 for me, then Carl Anderson, then Jay White, because like you said, Coby, he started off great, but his booking around it with the other members, fell down to earth. David Finlay has been doing a great job, so I have him at number 4. He could rise. In at number 3, AJ Styles brought a lot of new eyes to New Japan. In at number 2 is the man who created this faction, who made it feel like a big deal when it wasn't actually originally meant to be, and that was Prince Devitt. So I've got to give him that praise. And yeah, Kenny Omega at number 1, I do agree with you.
I've got Styles too.
The Elite ruined.
And I'm flipped in the middle.
It's definitely a conversation that can be had. I do think there's a lot of people can talk about what Cody did to the Bullet Club. And I think that's another conversation for another day.
They put a lot of eyes to it, though. I think it's the fact they left.
Did.
They left New Japan is what hurt it.
They left, right. They left what's New Japan. Well, absolutely. Of course, that's what hurt it. But I think what hurt the Bullet Club is the fact that we were working with the Bullet Club, and then all of a sudden, a lot of them were just distancing themselves. You had Kenny doing Golden Lever.
No, you are right too.
And it never felt like they have kind of. If I'm going to mention a fault of what Kenny Omega did at that point in time, is they never really left the Bullet Club correctly, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they kind of just distanced themselves, did other stuff. You had Kenny and Cody in a kind of is the Bullet Club fine feud. It was funky.
Yeah, no, I do agree, and Rosario does agree as well. But now let's move on to the final topic today, because it is a big headline which is going around, and that, of course, is that Peacock have announced that WWE will be doing a Saturday night's main event on July 12th, which will mean it will go directly head-to-head with AEW's biggest pay-per-view of the year, AEW All in Texas. They're going to start at the exact same time as well, apparently, 8 p.m. Eastern. So, Oh gosh, it's a bit of a frustrating one, this one. Obviously, we know NBC makes these decisions, not WWE. I absolutely refuse to believe WWE don't have a hand or a say in it. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying that. But this question is from @DrakeMcKenzie44, who says, who will win on July 12th, Saturday night's main event or All In? Well, without sounding like a philosopher here, define win. Because it's not like they're both on network television. It's not like we can actually see the viewership for them. And even if we could, one again is on cable, the other one is on pay per view. It's an unfair comparison. I mean, WWE will have more viewers, undoubtedly. But it does frustrate me just because, as a wrestling fan, it's always great to see competition. And obviously, now it going head to head with the competition, it makes it a little bit harder here. I make beats is saying I'm not tribalistic, but Saturday night's main event is a house show. I disagree with that. I do disagree with that. I thought the first one was good. There was just too many ads. Shots below the belt is saying, did Saturday night's main event really have to be on the same day, or was it a coincidence? I mean, we're told NBC are the ones who book it, but it's a little bit frustrating. Coby, I want to get your thoughts on this firstly.
I mean, I think it's tough because once again, like I say, there's a lot of things that aren't multi-layered conversations, and I mean, this is like, we can talk ticket sales, we can talk the viewership numbers, we can talk. I mean, one's gonna get pay-per-view buys, one's not gonna get pay-per-view buys. Like, there's so many metrics to think about and to make queries surrounding. And I think it's tough. And we know what they did. And they almost, like, especially the return one in December, they almost stacked it a little too much. And really only 2 matches kind of delivered in a good way. I think it's going to be tough to sit there and go, well, what can they do with differently? Because they can't. If they go 3 or 4 matches, you're very limited to how many stars you can use, because you're not gonna blow Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns on that and make a big match there. There's matches that aren't gonna happen because it doesn't make sense to put those big of matches on an NBC special like that. But I think the better shows ultimately is going to be All in Texas. You know, they're going to go all hands on deck. You know, they're going to put big matches, big moments. If you look at what they did with Wembley this year, I think they did a better job with Wembley the second time. And I think they know what it takes to put together a big stadium show in that sense. And I think they know where they're going. I think there's things that AEW have to do in order to get there and get to that point to make it a success, but it's already sold 10,000 plus tickets. And yes, it's a stadium show, and you're going to want to hope they get at least double that, but it's already going good. And I mean, WWE's Saturday night's main event most likely will be an arena show, and it's not going to be like, oh, they're going to hold a stadium show at the same time. No, they're not. They're going to hold a different level show. And I think that's kind of the difference here. Is like, there's so many metrics we can consider and look at once this is done, but it's hard to sit here and go which will do better, because that's such a subjective way to view things.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned, of course, it won't be a stadium show, and yeah, we know it definitely won't be that. But what they could do, and what I am fearing that they might do, is run it in Texas. And that would really, really frustrate me. I hope I'm wrong there.
Texas is
but
too big for that.
I mean,
I think even if they did, Texas is too big. It doesn't matter. I got to give credit where it's due. Coby Galenzoski just laid that down pretty perfectly. I will say, on this day we spell petty WWE NBC, but that's neither here nor there.
Is that one word?
It is what it is. Head to head wise, here's the good news for wrestling fans. It's far enough in advance that if the bully wants to punch down, and the little underdog has the time to scout that, you can respond. And so it's time for AEW to knuckle down and put on the best show that they maybe ever have. It's all hands on deck. Make that show so dang good and lean into it, because the first punch was thrown downward from the WWE when it comes to this one, but by being there on the same day. AEW booked way in advance, WWE not so fast. Okay, that's where we're at now. Fine. We'll give you the most stacked card ever. That's the only way you respond to this. That's the only way, if you're AEW, that you respond to this. It's still good for wrestling because we're going to talk about it all the way up until both events occur concurrently. Talk about a tongue twister there. That one's tough. But we're going to talk about it the length of the rest of the year until it happens. That's exciting. It's got to be all hands on deck for AEW, though. That's my main point here. That's the only thing AEW can do in response to this, because it's just the timing isn't coincidental.
It's not. I mean, again, maybe NBC are behind it. That's what they say. But DO3M here says, AEW is dead, bro. Get over it respectfully. It is not dead. It is anything but dead. Statistically, I mean, the 2-year TV deal isn't a brilliant sign, but they've still got a great TV deal for those 2 years. And as long as it, doesn't go down and continues a downward trend in that time, it'll be fine. I mean, listen, factually right now, it's slightly going upwards again, viewership wise and everything.
Right.
So it's not necessarily all bad news. MDB, they earned the punches.
No, MDB, that's not true. It's not true. Now, I do understand there is still some residual frustration from the time that they were the new kids on the block. They were the cool kids, and the real big WWE diehards got kind of picked on for like a year. I understand that
that's what it
people,
is.
And that's what this all comes from. And it flipped, as it should have, though.
It will. History
sense.
suggests the narrative will always flip, and it'll probably go back the other way at a point too.
Almost for sure.
Difficult.
Ask Pepsi.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely, exactly. He'll never catch up with WWE.
No,
I think it's very unlikely. But the narrative of the narrative that AEW is the better product in the hardcore IWC, I believe that narrative could return, and I believe it could return in the next few years. Easily. And then it'll go back the other way too. It's a swing.
And then the key is that we have multiple products to talk about, and it's just consistent, and they keep each other honest, because if one gets hot and the other gets cold, you have to respond. And that's what makes it great. I think that's the best thing about the current situation when it comes to professional wrestling as a whole. I preach that all the time. We need both badly.
Yes, that's why this frustrates me a little bit. Like, everybody knows, right? I love AEW, but I do tend to prefer WWE shows, right? That's not always the case, but that just tends to be my preference based on the pacing of the shows for me personally. But I, in this situation, want to watch All In more, not just because it's a pay-per-view, but also because it frustrates me at the fact that they're trying to go at a competitor when they're doing something big like this, which isn't going to affect them long term. But to end the show on a great note, I
do want someone. I actually do want to say something, and I just want to talk about the landscape of what's happening in that sense, because we look at it. It's All In Texas is this year's WrestleMania for AEW. It's their biggest show of the year, undoubtedly.
They've said
Guess what's happening for the WWE 3 weeks later? A 2-night SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Do you think all eggs are going to go into that Saturday night's main event basket? Like,
you don't know, mind. Their roster's big enough.
The roster's big enough, but they're not going to go. What are they going to do? They're going to hype up a Cody Rhodes match for that show, probably, but they're not going. There's still going to be a lot more focus on SummerSlam than there is going to be on the 2-hour I'd say 4 match, but it might be 5 because they they did 5 the first time, but a 4 or 5 match Saturday night's main event's gonna get less of a focus than a 2-night SummerSlam, which they will have to book.
Yeah.
This is
no, I mean,
it's
you're not
it's
wrong at
hard
all,
to
Coby.
compare AEW's biggest show of the year to an NBC TV special that WWE can put on 4 times, that are going to be putting on 4 times a year. It's hard to compare.
True, but
it's hard to quantify.
It
There's
stops
so many
WWE
metrics and
hardcore fans.
conversations to be had.
It stops
stops
those
what?
WWE hardcore fans who, haven't watched AEW before, who might watch it because they've heard this big stuff happening.
Yeah, if they don't go
now,
head to head.
it does. It still will hurt AEW undoubtedly.
They can even if that happens, they can still watch the second half of Raw. They
They're
can
not
still
going to buy
watch
it. They're not going to spend. They're not going to spend that much money after
if
sporting
it's
crowds.
isn't it on
They're
Max?
not. A casual will not.
Isn't it on Max?
I don't think
Aren't
so.
pay-per-views
The
on Max?
pay-per-views they
No,
said
the
were going to cost money originally.
What are they?
You still have to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so still, maybe they'll sail the high seas. Like
casuals aren't
maybe
gonna
Saturday
do
night's
that.
main event gets them excited to watch more and go, oh yeah, there was other stuff going on.
It's
Like it doesn't. I don't
I
think.
don't
that
think
changes
it will.
because they can still watch it.
It does.
People
It
don't
does.
wanna
It
just
does
buy
change
the
it because
second
I'm on
half.
about
They
the
may-
casual
they
fans.
might not
JW
wa-
trying to get
The
into.
percentage of the audience, to Ben's point,
the
Coby.
casual
Like, I hear where
fans
you're,
would-
where you're
But
going.
we
rather
are
watch
going to have to
Saturday
end the
night's
show now, guys. We got I Make Beats, and this is the great note that I want to just leave it on. WWE, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, also Trucking Progress Wrestling too. All good, absolutely. We will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you, Coby. Thank you, Clark. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.